26th of August. 22nd of August, the police came earlier than the time they have invited him, and they came and picked him up in a manner that we considered is an abduction, and then engaged in 2 days long journey, despite the fact that he said that he would have preferred to be flown to Cross River State. And eventually they kept him in custody all this while and refused to bring any charge against him. Then when voices of Nigerians became louder, they slammed him with charges of treason, treasonable felony, and terrorism, including cultism. And then you look at the facts of the case, none of them actually has anything to prove on all those allegations. And you begin to wonder that he was being accused of trying to overthrow the government of Cross River State, which is very funny. In which manner, there was no specifics. You know, it also goes to show the level of intolerance in this dispensation. You are not allowed to criticize the government. You remember that Agba has had a running battle with the governor over the governance of that state and then management of the funds of that particular state. He started with the local government funds, in which he alleged was not properly managed, and then the issue of microfinance bank, which he also alleged several amount of money was withdrawn by the governor to open the bank, and up to now the bank remained moribund. You know, nothing is functional concerning the bank, and so the governor took it personal. And then the next thing is this police invitation, and Agba was saying, I'm ready to be there in order to honor the invitation. They came earlier before that time and then now slammed him with all these charges. The lawyers have come up with enforcement of his fundamental human right proceedings. The case came up, I think, Monday. They alleged they were not served. The police now was served with substantive means by the court. On Thursday, when the case came up, they were now alleging again that the IG has not been served, even when they were pointed to the fact that under the enforcement procedure rules of enforcement of fundamental human right, if the aid of a principal officer is served, it suffices for the principal officer. That the CP has been served, the court still had to bend backwards, saying that we should ensure that the IG is served. So we will ensure that that is done between now and next Monday, when the case is going to come up. So I believe that the court will be very bold enough to enforce the fundamental human right of a citizen who has been detained illegally all this while. We don't want a situation where people will take laws into their hand.
Let us start with the manner in which it was taken. Under what circumstance could somebody be invited and the police would not wait? What exactly would you think they actually want to achieve with that? Did they explain why they abducted him ahead of the invited date?
Up to now, there is no explanation as to the procedure they adopted in this particular arrest. I mean, you invited somebody, and in writing, and you gave him a definite date to come, and he agreed to come, and you have not allowed that particular date to come. The next thing you did now was to come 4 days earlier than the date you gave to him, and abducted him. And up to now, as I said earlier, even the charge that they have served on him, the court has, he has not been arraigned before any court. I understand that the Federal High Court is on vacation, so they chose Federal High Court knowing fully well that he's on vacation. But the proper thing would have been to release him on bail pending the time the court will resume, rather than keeping him in detention when you are not ready to arraign him because the court is on vacation. So it's very, very interesting a case. I'm talking about the charges of terrorism, the charges of treason, and then treasonable felony and cultism and all that. And then there are no facts. And if you look at the facts that they use in order to prefer those charges, they all bordered on the fact that he was insulting the governor, that he wrote certain things against the governor, and that he wants to incite Nigerians to overthrow the government of Cross River State. And that sounds so funny. It then means that if you criticize any government now, the next thing now is that they charge you for treason, and then it becomes very impossible for you to obtain a bail because treason carries death penalty, and then issue of terrorism He also carries a very high level of high sentence and all that. So this is now the new method they use in order to silence any criticism or any critic or any activist who actually want a better government and a better Nigeria for the citizens. So it's something that we should be worried. And why we should be worried is the legitimacy also granted to those illegal detentions by the judiciary. It's important we begin to, say it the way it is. The judiciary should not in any way lend itself to the violation of citizens' right. If the executive wants to violate the citizens' right, it is the judiciary we run to in order to ensure that the rights of the citizens are not violated. But if the court now lends itself, in legitimizing illegal detention of citizens by granting ex parte orders detaining beyond the 48 hours allowed by the Constitution, then it becomes very worrisome. It becomes worrisome because we're under democracy, and under democracy, we know what the law says with regards to the rights of the citizen. The citizen's right must be protected, must be respected, and it is guaranteed by the Constitution itself. And so, if it must be in a manner that the law itself allows. So, using the judiciary at this juncture in order to violate rights, by detaining beyond the time allowed by the Constitution is something that all of us should be worried about, and we must begin to speak against it and allow the government, the law to take its place and allow such thing not to be allowed accommodating under democracy. Is very important.
Lastly, this charge of treason or treasonable felony is similar to the one Sowore is charged with. Do you see this having connection in the eventual, whether they are going to be merging all of this together, trying Jalingo and Sowore together at the same time?
Well, I don't know how they want to, because this charge is coming from the Nigerian police. Sowore's matter is being handled by DSS. And DSS is a federal agency. The CP in the state of Cross River is, I don't know, he wants to make it a federal matter too. They allege that Alleges Jalingo is a friend, and they are all in the same vein wanting to overthrow the government, and they have made some reference to his association with Sowore. So, but I don't know whether they want to merge it or they want to try them independently. But the point is that you have to provide facts. You have to ensure that you prove beyond reasonable doubt. It is easier to make allegations against citizens and all that, but when it comes to issue of proof, you have to muster the facts that are very relevant in order to convict. So we watch and see how all these things will play out. Now, in Sowore's matter, remember they allege that he went and collected so much money from somebody in Dubai, and the story is that the man has not even been to Dubai all his life. There is no evidence to that. So these allegations, to me, there is more to it. But when the trial starts, when the proceedings commences at the court, we begin to see the evidence that we produce in order to show the court that these guys are actually liable or have committed any crime against the state in whatever they have preferred as charges. So we watch and wait, waiting to see how these things are going to play out. But what I would have wanted is to have them granted bail, because this issue of presumption of innocence is very also fundamental right. That is guaranteed by the Constitution. Anyone that is accused of any crime at any point in time is presumed to be innocent until the contrary is proved. So if you have not convicted them yet, you have no right whatsoever to put them under long detention, because what you are doing now is that they are serving jail sentence whether they have not been convicted. So why don't you grant them bail and then produce evidence when the trial commences, rather than putting them in this indefinite detention, which to me is clearly a violation of citizens' rights. So let's try as much as possible to speak against this thing. It can happen to somebody, we don't know, but one day it becomes even, a personal experience. I have been a victim of wrongful detention by a security agency, and I wouldn't like any person to experience it. Whatever I can do to speak against violation of citizens' rights, I will go ahead and do it. People have no right. The security agencies have no right whatsoever to curtail or violate citizens' rights. If somebody has committed a crime, what you should do is to ensure you prefer the charge and take the person to court. He has no right whatsoever to now detain that person illegally when the court has not made such a pronouncement. And then using the court also to legitimize illegal detention is something we should speak against. It is not right. It is condemnable and should not be allowed under democracy. That's my take in all this.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.